Now, if they don't have health care, they don't. So I don't want to give specific examples, and there's a lot of problems to overcome, okay? But they still live better, okay? And a lot better. And in many cases, a lot of us that make a little money live better than the kings and queens did, you know, in 1825. So we've come a long way. Now we just got to do it for everybody else and do it environmentally friendly. And we have the solution, and the main solution is free them up money. There's going to be a lot of alternatives of how to do it, and that's up to our leaders in Congress. But they're still debating philosophy. I'm a laissez-fairist, I'm a Keynesian. And you'll read at the beginning of my book, I'm trying to get them to debate and fight over implementation. How should we do that? And that's where you have all these people coming in these ideas like this. How should we do this program? Okay, we have unlimited money because we know how not to create excess inflation. Okay, and once you have any, then we're freed up. We're freed up to do what we want to do. Those who want to make money and go in business will do the same as they're doing. Those who want to serve the country. Since we have free education in doctors, all doctors get free education if they want to serve X amount of years on a hospital ship or in Africa or something. Everybody gets the free education, including doctors. So we'll have enough doctors, because they always say we have a shortage of doctors. Just like the big corporations, we can't find the employees. Now, they're not trained. And then the libertarian comes in and says, well, why don't you train them if you're a libertarian? And the reason they can't find enough employees is they can't find enough employees with low enough salary. Okay, they have a little caveat there, okay? Because when PhD and computer science guys are unemployed and they have enough employees, and there's other problems. So we're all on this planet together, including business. We're the customers of these guys, okay? They have to make sure we're in good shape, okay? And the current system doesn't enough, okay? And what happens, they reach a limit like China did, where they got about 300,000 in middle class. And the way they measure poor is, if you make more than $125 a day, you're not poor. $1.25 a day. You're not poor. What? $1.25 a day? To me, you're dirt poor, okay? You can't get much poor than $1.25 a day, okay? But a lot of people only make, that, and so we got to stop that. And there's no reason to bring all the rest. There's no reason that it can't be corrected and brought in and bring the rest of the people up to a level. There's absolutely no reason. We have all the technology, we have all the ability. The only thing we don't have is the money. And you hear the politicians say we have limited resources, which means they say, I don't have the money. And the reason they don't have the money is, they don't have the money system.
You're right here.
Yeah.
So I had two things. One of them was, first of all, I'm studying nonprofits, and there's a lot of campaigns with like the Ford Foundation to eliminate extreme poverty. And I looked up their definition of extreme poverty, which is $2 a day.
Yeah.
So if you're doing $2 a day, we're not too concerned with you. So I just thought to mention that. But my question is, have you incorporated I know you have an environmental bank in there, but it seems to me there is a limit to growth in terms of ecological. There's only so much growth we can have sustainably or regeneratively, and so we have concepts, things like planned obsolescence. And so, have you thought about like building into the system how we can, better use the resources that we have that's not simply centered around the growth of money?
Yeah, the specifics are the 5 R's. Remember I mentioned they're very important, okay? And I understand where you're coming from because there's books written on it from physics people that say we're running out of resources, okay? And they're correct. Population is going to level off around 9 to 10 billion, by the way. And, but if we do the 5 R's, implement the 5 R's, either forced implementation by Congress or a pricing system or any you want to implement. If we implement, we can have everything, okay? This world will supply it. And we'll find new things as we travel and explore and research, okay? Because once we get control of the atoms and the molecules, as we're doing in nanomanufacturing, okay? They're making the stuff out of pure atoms, okay? Don't ask me any more than that because it's beyond me, okay? That is a problem, but can be overcome with the 5 R's.
Mark, there's a whole lot of things that I really like about what you've done, but there's one sort of question that sort of sits in the back of my mind, and that is that we have heard over the last decades how technology was going to reduce the work week and reduce drudgery and all this kind of stuff, and yet we've had a lot of technological improvements, and yet people are working like crazy, those who are employed more than 40 hours a week. And there's sort of an intensity and desperation there that hasn't given rise to the kind of real satisfaction. You know, you argue that well, you know, this kind of robotics will provide all this leisure and so on. And I'm saying, yeah, but sort of that kind of thing hasn't happened till now. How come?
Well, because they haven't been implemented yet. The robotics hasn't been implemented.
But other technology has, of labor saving. A lot of it has.
I want you to, that's a nationalistic question or comment. I want you to look globally, okay? I want you to look globally and see what the rest of the people are doing in Africa and India, okay, in China, and they're still, you know, talk about unhappy, they don't have anything, okay? So what's going to happen, my concept to directly answer your question in terms of nationally, is that if I give people and companies their basic survivals, which is food, you know, the list there that I put back up, okay? Less pressure on wages, I don't have to work the 40 hours, I can work the 30 hours, I can take more time off, and the pressures of making a living and surviving is going to be a lot less. I didn't say a perfect world, but a lot less, okay? And so you're going to find more satisfaction. A lot of people work 40, 50, 60 hours a week because they love it, okay, at that level. They're actually going to reduce a little bit. The problem will be, then there's, like human being, we have human nature. I didn't solve all the problems, just the economic ones. You're going to have the robotic scientists and the robotic paramedic at first that are going to be very busy, okay, until they replace the robots to help repair. I mean, you're going to have some demands on certain areas, and they're going to have to work, and they'll be compensated for it. Well, because the companies are not worried about supporting their workers on their survival or their education, okay? So it's there, yes, Mark.
Seeing that it's not 2046 yet. Like
Right.
I guess my issue is always how do you balance the things that you want to provide in the short term. So let's say monetary reform hits in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
We haven't got to full robotic stage yet.
Yeah.
How do you balance still having taxation with all these things you're trying to give away?
Okay.
Because to me that's a very difficult
When you
bridge to cross.
include, let's start with the federal taxation. I include an income tax, you read in my book. If you include income tax, you have to include payroll tax, okay? I perceive by the 2030, I'm just picking a number out of the air, that everybody making 100,000 or more or less will not have either, because money will be created and will be taxing the wealthier. So I don't believe in any taxation, including payroll tax, maybe $100 to register you. It all should be done by printed money and taxation of the 50%, everybody above that, okay? In some sort of combination. Now again, it's the 1/10, the 2/10, the 3/10, okay? Because they have enough money to invest in certain, but me at my level, I don't have enough money to start a Tesla auto company, you know, I can't even afford a private jet, okay? So, if everybody wants to see how, you know, how expensive that is, and a waste of money that is, go see how much they charge for those things. Yes?
Mark, I don't know if everyone here knows, you ran for Congress quite
Yeah.
some time ago, and
Yeah.
you made monetary reform a part of your platform.
Yeah, 96.
In '96, you had some response from the voters, and you've brought these ideas to others, and now you have this book. In a general sense, what is the reaction you get from all of those experiences when you're proposing these ideas? Where do people get stuck, and what do they like, and what do they catch on to right away and really want to have that we can't give them just yet?
I have the same reaction as everybody else has in this room that preaches monetary reform, which is basically almost no reaction. The disappointing thing that I have is I can't, because I meet directly with the Congress people, because I give them money, is that I can't get our Congress people to read. I've been working on the Clinton since 1999. Can't get them to read, okay? Been working on Ted Lieu, who we're trying to get to read Newstat Act. Can't get him to read, and he's on that airplane 30 hours a month or something, going back and forth, or whatever the time frame is. I just can't get them to read the summaries. Forget Stephen's book. So I'm hoping that my book will get them to read a little bit, because I've integrated it with the other solutions besides monetary reform. A quality customer minimum wage, improve the antitrust department, okay? More long-range business planning versus short-range stuff, okay? We tied it in. So that's my, and I've been working on it for 25 years, bang. And the first experience, he just died a couple of weeks ago, but first experience I had is there were a congressman that I went to in '92, and I handed him the paper on monetary reform. It was like 2 or 3 pages. And I said, what do you think? Well, he says, really not my area. I didn't understand. Well, first of all, they're in charge of overseeing that, and none of them understand the system. So I'm sitting with Ted Lieu and what's her name, Brownlee, for dinner, and Ted Lieu, who worked for a bank, by the way, and is a really nice guy and a smart guy, and I'd vote for him any 2 seconds, but he says, banks create the money, and then they loan it to businesses? I says, they create the money, but they don't loan it to businesses anymore. You're behind times. They loan it to 70 and 80% of the mortgages to real estate. They loan it to businesses? No, they don't loan it to businesses. They come to us, the capital markets, for their money now. It's only small percentages to businesses. He still can get over it. I don't think he still understands it, even though one-on-one. So it's a difficult thing. And the reason I wrote the book, I'm trying to bring in the right, because they're wrong, and it's harder to convince wrong people to move. I'm hoping to convince lost people to move, the Democratic side. I'm not, they're living a ranch in the forest over there somewhere, Yeah.
Seeing as you're taking this from a global perspective,
Yeah.
I'm just interested in your thoughts on.
Aim the mic at your mouth.
Okay. I'm interested in your thoughts on, or your views on, somebody in the back had asked, could one country do this? I have a hard time getting my arm around one country doing this and not it being a global movement kind of at the same time, just because, as an example, I look at it as a global accounting system, and it would be like one company saying, I'm not going to use these accounting principles anymore, I'm going to do what I want to do, and how other businesses would react to that person, they would get shut out. And so I'm interested in your views on how do you think that one country could do this when we have a global system of monetary accounting, which is really what this debt-based system is.
Here's what'll happen, which causes the hyperinflation. That's why you have to be careful. Somebody that really wants to do it better have the productivity, because what happens is they become a massive trade deficit, and the trade deficit destroys their modern currency. Of course, Europe can't do it because they're locked into the euro, okay, and the central bank system there. So, but a country like New Zealand could do, so you could do it and implement it, but you can only do a little bit of this. Because what'll happen is if you get a huge trade deficit, because everybody's going to want to buy the stuff overseas with their local currency, you'll collapse the currency, Zimbabwe, and so you can't do it all. Now this country could do it all, okay? Japan could do it all, okay? Europe is already halfway there, okay? They can do it all when they free up the money. And poor Greece, what a Greek, I love this, it's Greece, because you could say it's a Greek tragedy, right? And there's a perfect example of the money. And they always renegotiate the loan, and it's impossible to pay it back. There's no money there. It's
follow-up to
interesting.
that is, though, even though that could happen, don't you see that as a huge weakness and an argument for those who will oppose this to say, they want to go to the Wild Wild West and they just want to let every country do whatever they want to, and it's going to collapse the whole system because of what you just said. Is that if some country chooses to create money in, let's say some small country passes monetary reform.
Mhm.
Russia says, oh, I like that idea, I'm going to do it too. And I'm going to do that, and I'm going to build another 10,000 nuclear weapons and all this other stuff.
they'll collapse their currency, just like they're doing now.
That won't necessarily stop them from doing it, though.
Yeah.
And what I'm speaking of is the arguments against it that we still have to go through.
Yeah.
And so, to me, doesn't it make sense to have a global solution to be discussing at the same time
You know,
to combat those arguments?
live in a globalized world with the G20 and everything, I don't see why not. And you'll read in the opening of my book how we solved it globally, and that everybody eventually became, everybody, except for residents, because that varies a lot, but by 2046, everybody had this by proper cooperation, and I know that's difficult because we don't get along, and I always use an example in my talks of there's a white Christian culture. Christians now be good to one another. It's been fighting for 1,200 years, okay? 1,200 years they've been fighting, and they still disagree on stuff, and I've been there. And what place am I talking about? Anybody?
Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland, exactly. 1,200 years, so people don't get along anyway, okay? That's why I like the Olympics, because it allows us to get on. Certain things that we do, we manage to do the containerization for everybody. Very few things we do globally. Well, one thing we can do is the monetary system globally. I mean, the central banks can stop us because they lose their power, but is that we have this offsetting balance of currency. So if I have a 1 billion trade deficit with this country, I send 100 million over annually. And they can figure out a very good way, because it's just money. It's just a digital, I send it back over. What's gonna happen? I send it back, buying more stuff that the robots make, okay? So you're still gonna have the rich and poor companies, but the poor countries, we're gonna give them money, okay? And so they can still buy this stuff, okay? As long as they do it environmental friendly for you environmentalists, okay? And so it's all about money, and it's not very complicated, but it's very complicated to comprehend. Yeah, yes.
So, first of all, I really want to commend you on this book. I did actually read it. Before I got here, I had to skim a few parts to get to the sixth part, but I am the daughter of a Republican, died way too long ago. A small businessman, manufacturer of precision thermometers. So I think you're doing really important work in terms of working with the right and beyond that, working with people like me. I agree with a lot that's here. I learned a lot that's here. I learned a lot from what's here. I have, there was one motivation I had for buying it myself and reading it, and you sent me a copy, and besides that you were going to talk about it here, and it was a comment that you made on a conference call that kind of stuck in my craw a little bit, and that's my last point, but I have two comments before that, that I share Sue's perspective, but go beyond that, in the sense that I want other species besides human beings to survive, and I think while I think your work with the right is really important, I also think there are some blinders in your book, and the one I'll get to at the end, that we need to be in dialogue. And I'm saying again, and I'm going to talk too long, I'm not being very articulate right now, but that you've kept coming all these years. I mean, I personally and politically thank you, and I know why you're doing it is because of the work, because of the monetary reform, because of your understanding and all of our understanding of what needs to change. The blinders that I didn't get to inherit my father's business because I didn't get to work in the damn factory part of it, because I didn't happen to have one of those appendages of my body that you had to have.
Yeah.
I didn't, who knows if I wanted to, but it wasn't a choice for me because I couldn't inherit the business if I didn't understand the business. Beyond that point,
That has changed, by the
But
way.
we have to get to a question.
I'm getting to the
This is a
question.
long setup, so we're trying to get.
That's all right, because I'll stay after till 12.
Question.
I'll stay as long as you
Okay.
want.
The one, okay, point about the robotics, that is, and this goes with what John was saying, that in part is a product of what we've produced. And whether or not, given the change of the money system, that we want to allow that to continue is a question mark. But my question, getting to that, has to do with the statement in here that I didn't find the answer to as to why you think FDIC insurance has a place at all in a reform monetary
Okay.
system.
Okay, let me, that means it wasn't clear in my book, but it's in there, I think, maybe just not clear. Let's talk it from me, okay? Let's talk about you, or anybody in this room. I want to be able to put money in some place where it is totally safe. If you read Positive Money's book, they talk a lot about that in there. I want to, as a certified financial planner, I want to have a place where I can put money that's totally safe, okay? Treasuries are gone, which is the safest place to put a money. Safe in terms of nominal safe, not inflationary safe. So the banks will, from my client's side or everybody's side, people have a place to put their savings without risk. That's number one. Number two, it won't collapse the banking system. The banking system will have an influx of money from around the world that will allow them to be intermediaries and not collapse. Number three is strictly political. We got to convince them to this change. People don't like change anyway, and this change is going to be, it's going to be massive. It's going to take a crisis. We've talked about this before, and this will politically allow them to participate. If we want to take it away later, we can. Remember, it's not a high rate of return. So it's good for the average people, it's good for the banking system, which are now intermediaries. Now, we can spread out the FDC to certain mutual funds and other things once we get going. But you have to have a safe place for all the people's money, at least to start their savings. And this is, you know, we live in a socialism is not implementable. We live in a capitalistic world, okay? If you noticed in my, I know you guys are, if you noticed in my book, everybody should be take a financial planning course. It's in my book, in their senior year of high school, so they understand money and they manage the money. And I believe that you need to do this because if you don't, we remove incentive, you remove especially incentives. We're not emotionally or physically able to be all equal, okay? We're just not there yet, maybe in 100 years or 200 years. And you know, I'm a Trekkie. If you watch TNG and you watch that's where we're going. And that's where I'm trying, that's where monetary reform is the first step, is to get to that level. And right at the beginning of my book it says, I'm not solving all the human things. I'm barely smart enough to understand monetary system, okay? So it's just the economics things I'm solving. It's up to all the talented people like Jim going to the things with their psychology and I picture the millennial individuals are less materialistic than us baby boomers, us other than hippies, okay? And we're moving in that direction. They're more into services and online. They don't care if they own a home. You know, it's a whole different world, and we're changing quickly. The problem is the system is bringing us down to South America and Mexico instead of bringing them up. That's where the global. In other words, we had health care for most people. Yeah, we had problems. We had jobs, etc. And we're going down to the lowest common denominator instead of bringing up the world, okay? And we have to start bringing up the world, and it's because of money that it's all these problems. It's because of money. But you don't want to eliminate freedom, in my opinion. Sound righty, don't I? I've always been on the left, by the way. Yeah.
I first wanted to thank you for bringing up Northern Ireland. On behalf of the Irish Catholics, I'd like to express my gratitude to the Muslims because when the word terrorist is used, people no longer think of us. The other thing that's related to that, I got this directly from Jerry Adams, an IRA radical.
I know he is.
That it's really more of a landlord-tenant fight than a religious fight, and that Catholics, rich Catholics who have land usually side with the Protestants, and poor Protestants who rent often side with the Catholics.
I know it's an economic issue, I understand that. And the unions and all that, union marching and been intimidating everybody. And if I was an Irish Catholic, I wouldn't live in Northern Ireland. I would just get out, like my grandfathers did, got out of Europe, thank God, okay? So, but this solves all that economic stuff. It doesn't solve the cultural differences. The Muslim revolution is somewhat economic because they don't have anything, but a lot of it is emotion, and I can't solve that. That's up to the psychologists and those type of people. Yes?
Yeah, you talked about the trade deficits. Won't robotics be kind of an equalizer? I mean, because if you have a need in a country, you'll build a plant over there, and the robots will build it. There'll be very little, the only thing that'll be involved really is shipping the equipment there. But once it's there, it's the raw materials. But so doesn't that kind of equalize things?
I don't know about equalize, but again, the companies that are more advanced and the robotics will make things cheaper and better would have the advantage. Remember that firms, basically today, a lot of firms are not nationalistic. They're talking about U.S. firms. GM is a U.S. firm. They've been making cars in Canada forever. Why? Because they don't have to pay for medical insurance. GE, the head of the jobs guy, was the first guy for the jobs to leave, to outsource jobs. He sent irons in 71, he put the iron making factory in Hong Kong, and they keep looking for cheaper companies. They're running out of countries, by the way. Countries, because they figured this out. Now the robots are coming in and they're looking simpler. So it depends where they put the plants will be the wealthier countries, because there's still some employment. If you don't have anything to do and you're not making anything, you got a problem. So I'm not sure how much of an equalizer. I haven't really thought through it, but an interesting question to discuss and go over. Now we got to leave a break for lunch. Those of you who want to go for lunch. Those of you who want to go to lunch, I'll be here all the way till Sunday at 3, and we can discuss it now because I'm not going to lunch. You'll just sit here and chat on it. We don't have to have the film. And just philosophize on all these questions that I haven't thought about yet. I'm just trying to get the basic structure so we can implement that, but we're still going to be competitive. There's still going to be competition.